one-shot stuff, piano stuff, all that good stuff, but we also have rhythmic stuff, like hi-hats. This one in particular is called trap hi-hats, which I think will be perfect for this project. I'm going to click and drag that in, and even though the initial sample says it's 125 BPM, Serato Studio does the heavy lifting for us, but I did like the initial part of that sample, so I'm going to favorite this little section. Now I can hit Find Samples, and I can add in different cue points of the sample on my own as well. So let's actually move this one. Let's stretch it. Now, like I said before, we can even adjust the pitch of these. So let's go ahead and adjust the pitch of number 2, just to give it that more of a glitchy vibe. Not too much, though. Let's play it back. Let's continue to add in some more cue points. And now I've got 3 cue points within this hi-hat sample that I can bounce between and layer over my drums. So let's record these just like we recorded when we were finger drumming. And go to instruments. We can now add in I think we're going to go with the 808 head explosion for sure. Now, Serato Studio making things easy for us again, because just like playing those drums on the numbers here on the key, obviously that's a bit too high for an 808 to go down and up an octave, but let's use Z to go down. Other instruments happening actually adjusts the key of your entire project, which actually I don't have a problem with, but just remember, you can go back and change this later and it will adjust it for all your instruments. I like playing a really basic pattern like that. Note that we are playing in key here on the number pad, and if we're in playing key mode, that will also adjust our MIDI keyboard as well. Those are the same note that we're hearing, but you can see that I'm actually playing 2 different notes, of course. And that's because playing key mode is activated, where if it wasn't, we can now play chromatically. And it even gives us a little diagram there of how to play chromatically on our computer keyboard as well. I'm going to leave it in playing key mode, though, for now. We've got a glide function here on our 808, which actually makes it so the notes glide between each other, which is pretty typical for 808s. We can crank that up. It'll be even more dramatic, but it's probably a pretty good spot for it. Turning record off. Our 808 and our kick are competing a little bit. I'm going to help mitigate that by adding a little bit of a side chain to our 808 by activating the effects, and then from this drop-down menu here, switching this effects from a stutta fader to a hard sidechain. I don't want to go too hard, and not all producers do this, but this is a stylistic thing that I like using for this beat in particular. The next are some bells. All right, so let's go back to instruments in our library, mallets and percussion crate. Let's preview some of these sounds. I like this anime percussion sound, so let's click and drag it in here. And now, before we add this layer, since we've got a pretty solid pattern happening with our 808s, our hi-hats, and our drum kit, let's go ahead and click on our little intro scene and copy it over to this blank scene slot. The way to do that is just by clicking on a scene and then immediately going over to a blank scene slot where you can copy previously selected scene. Now we can add this layer of anime percussion over it and have both, one with this little bell instrument that we're about to add and one without. Let's go ahead and play with these effects a little bit. Now, some instruments come loaded with effects on them already, but usually they're turned off. So Beam Me Up, Echo, Light Tail Reverb, both examples of that. They're on the deck, but they're not turned on until we click them and they turn. Go does. Adds a little bit of echo. Let's see if we can add some delay though. We can change the time of that delay right here. You hear that pattern changing. Advice for coming up with little catchy melodies or melodic ideas is find simple patterns and repeat them and then vary them slightly. So if I play that very simple ascending pattern, 1, 2, 3, 5, then I maybe want to find a second pattern to play. Maybe go descending. Adding in that new note. So previously we're going up. Now let's go down and add a new note. I believe this phrase that I'm playing is actually 8 bars long. So what I'm going to do is duplicate our pattern here, which we don't have to go back and duplicate our ideas because it did it automatically for us. Let's go ahead and add this new melody with the anime percussion on top. Pretty satisfied with that. Maybe we could bring that volume up a little bit more now. You don't see any notes in our grid because we can of course scroll through this and find them. Now I really like this. What I probably want to do though is duplicate it. So I'll click on scene 2 and then click on an empty scene. And maybe what I want to do actually is play that same melody but up an octave. Like that. So I'm going to clear that initial one that we just played and I'm going to record again. Didn't play it rhythmically perfect, but we have quantization. A scene that's just like scene 3. Let's copy it. That doesn't have the kick. Let's make sure we do this across the entire pattern. So I've gone into selection mode, I'm highlighting all those kicks, and I'm just pressing delete. Let's get rid of them. And remember, this is only affecting scene 4 that we've just created. This isn't affecting any of the other scenes that do have kick in them. And maybe let's get rid of the hi-hats. And we can turn our metronome off. We don't need it right now. And then we could transition back to a scene like scene 3. And suddenly we've got these little variations on these patterns that all have the same kind of ideas being passed around, but arranged in different ways. And that is how we will eventually come to arrange our track. Specifically for this scene, let's add that vocal sample that we added to our drum kit. Go out of selection mode so we can draw it in. We'll have that little hit. That'll make things a little bit different there. And I think we're probably ready for one more layer. Let me go ahead and duplicate scene 2 because that's kind of our most basic groove. That'll probably serve as our verse. I'd like to add a little bit of a guitar riff. So I go to guitar, there's one instrument available. Let's drop it in. And now, it sounds pretty dry, like it's not really going to match the rest of our track, but these preloaded effects will probably make it sound pretty cool. Definitely some reverb. And maybe not flanger. Let's go ahead and add some phaser actually. I like it better with phaser and with no reverb. See, melodies and melodic ideas, they don't really have to be that complicated, especially if they're just like little guitar riffs like this. They don't have to be too complicated. Don't feel like you have to play all the notes that are available to you. Find a few that work together in repeated patterns. Let's go ahead and record and drag and adjust that note. Same thing there. Let's go. Great this time around. So I'm going to go to the Studio Trap Drum Kit and press clear. I'm going to do the same thing on the hi-hats. Now we have this nice suspenseful section, and I'll tell you what I want to do next. I want to take scene 3, copy it over, and I want to change up the drums, but instead of me playing in a completely new drum pattern, let's actually use the make drums feature, which generates drum patterns in a particular genre for us. So if I drop down this menu and let's find the trap genre, it will generate a trap beat for us. So I selected trap, let's click that, and you see we get a totally different pattern now. I like that. The only issue we're having is it's playing this, triggering this long kick, which is really clashing with our 808. So we can just get rid of that wherever it shows up. This hi-hat is a very triplet kind of feel. We can adjust it individually. By going to song view, it's already put in a section of intro for it. And let's drop scene 2 in right here. And one idea I had for scene 2 was to sort of trigger a reverb on one of the snares in particular. And we can do that with automation. Let me show you what I mean. So in scene 2 here, let's go to our drum kit, Studio Trap. We've got our claps. That's what I meant. We're going to trigger the reverb on the claps. And we can adjust things like automation, like make certain effects happen at certain moments in time by clicking this robot icon here. And that gives us the option to automate a bunch of different effects, including the effects we have loaded up here below and our basic EQ and gain. We can even automate the key shift and the tempo. But I would like to automate the drums reverb, which is FX3. And I want to automate it so that it's on right there where that particular drum hit happens. If I activate it and turn it on now, it's not going to do anything because the dial is all the way down. But let's go ahead and draw in that automation for drums reverb on. So now we've adjusted that specific moment in time to trigger that reverb. And it doesn't happen anywhere else. We could automate it to happen other places, but I don't think we need to right now. But just know that that is the way to be automating specific effects to happen at a certain moment. Use that drop-down menu after clicking that robot and automate any of these parameters. Click that robot again, and we're back into editing our clip. But like I said, I got distracted and we were arranging. So let's go ahead. We were here going from an intro section to scene 2. Let's just go right in order for now, and we'll go to scene 3 right from scene 2. We'll go to scene 4, scene 5, 6, and 7. And these scenes, exactly how we've built them, now exist on this running timeline, which we can eventually build up to be a whole song. And if I click on master, we get a view of what our master track looks like in real time. We get access to master effects as well, which as I dial those in, like a master compressor, we'll start to see it affect the waveform, or a limiter, for instance, which will add volume to our track for sure. And a brightness EQ, which I don't think we necessarily need for this track. Although it doesn't sound half bad. But we can go ahead and repeat some of those sections We can build new sections once we start to build out this arrangement and say, it would be nice to have a B section here, or it would be nice to add, an additional section with a different groove. Anything like that. We can always go back to our scenes, build up some more, and then drop them into our arrangement view. From there, let's say you had a rapper or somebody to go over this beat, you send it to them and they send you back an acapella. You can add the audio right here. And right in Serato Studio, you can finish your track. For exporting, all you got to do is go to File, Export, and you can just export the track as it is, like if you were going to send this beat off to a rapper. Or if you want to send it out for mixing, mastering, open it up in another program and go a little bit deeper, you can export the stems, which is each individual instrument, including you have the ability to export each individual drum pad as a stem as well. So that's a quick look at how to build a trap beat in Serato Studio. If you want to see me work in a couple other genres and also touch on some basic music making fundamentals.
Hi, welcome to the November 24th Club Cubase Google Hangout for 2020. I'm going to do a quick test and make sure my audio is coming through fine, and we'll get started here in just a few minutes. Just refresh my browser. Hi, welcome to... Okay, so audio seems to be coming through fine. My name is Greg Undo. I'll be the host for the Hangout today. If you're watching this live, you could submit questions in the live chat field and we'll go through them. You could also submit questions in advance to clubcubase@steinberg.de. If you are watching this offline, you may want to skip ahead 9 or 10 minutes and because we're going to be getting people logged in. So if you could just, if you're watching this not live, make sure you feel free to go ahead and jump ahead. So once again, my name is Greg Undo. I work as a product specialist for Yamaha Corporation of America. I focus primarily on Steinberg product. Now today I'm presenting from the United States outside of Washington, D.C. area in Alexandria.